Hello, patrons. I hope you are all well. For the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. But obviously, it's not the YouTube community, it's the Patreon community. This week, it's an exclusive for patrons at Basic Tier Plus and above. To timestamp this, it is 3:35 p.m. on Thursday, April the 3rd. That means I'm circa 4.5 hours away from Tottenham going 1-0 down at Stamford Bridge. We have double and blank game week confirmation for game weeks 33 and 34. In case you've missed it, we have now got confirmation double game week 33. Manchester City versus Aston Villa and Arsenal versus Crystal Palace are going into those game weeks. And Nottingham Forest versus Brentford is staying in game week 34, though on the Thursday rather than the previously projected Wednesday. It's a relief to, particularly later in the season, for the projections to come as anticipated and predicted. Is quite nice because all the way through the season, the further you are away from the end, the more likely the projections are to be wrong. So to get to a point where they feel like they're right, that's great. There are obviously still things up in the air about game week 36 and game week 37, which I'd just like to cover briefly now. So obviously there are 4 games that could be postponed from the weekend of game week 37. So those are the games that involve the teams that could play in the FA Cup finals. So that's Aston Villa against Tottenham, Crystal Palace against Wolves, Manchester City against Bournemouth, and West Ham against Nottingham Forest. What might have missed some of you by today is the game week 36 announcement of the TV picks. Couple of interesting notes in that. Nottingham Forest against Leicester announced for a Sunday afternoon kickoff is interesting. Liverpool and Arsenal is the other Sunday game. All of the other 8 fixtures remain on the Saturday, though Tottenham versus Crystal Palace obviously could move to the Sunday. And it's a similar circumstance with Manchester United against West Ham. Obviously, if Tottenham and Manchester United, respectively, playing Europa League semi-final second legs, then those fixtures will move to the Sunday. Why is this all relevant? Well, it gives us a little bit of an indication further of what may happen in game week 36. As I'm sure probably all of you will have heard me say at some stage, if Aston Villa win their FA Cup semi-final and Tottenham win their Europa League quarter-final against Eintracht Frankfurt, Aston Villa versus Tottenham must be brought forward from game week 37 to the Wednesday in game week 36 of Wednesday, May the 14th. That would be a certainty. The others are less predictable. However, I take note that Manchester City versus Bournemouth could now fit into the Tuesday. And currently so too could Crystal Palace and Wolves. They could be, both those fixtures could be brought forward to the Tuesday in game week 36, meaning a 4-day break before the FA Cup final. There is no alternative in the Aston Villa scenario. Of course, again, in the scenario that Tottenham did proceed and Palace reached the FA Cup final, then Palace Wolves couldn't take place on the Tuesday. I now think that should Crystal Palace or Nottingham Forest win in the FA Cup semi-finals, their fixtures would be more likely to stay in game week 37 than be brought forward to game week 36. In the West Ham Nottingham Forest case, I pretty much think that either way. In the Crystal Palace versus Wolves case, I think that would be dependent on what would happen with Tottenham. So, for example, if Tottenham didn't reach the Europa League semi-finals and Palace beat Villa, I think Palace Wolves gets brought forward to 36. If Tottenham are still in Europe, I think it gets pushed back to the midweek in 37. I will cover that in more detail in future weeks going forward, but it is something to bear in mind. That's an exclusive for patrons. Let's get into the questions. I will cover all the questions. So if anybody's in the chat live, thanks very much for those who submit questions. You're thinking, oh, I don't want to submit repeat questions. I can see there aren't that many in. So if you suddenly think, I want to add another question, doesn't matter literally what it is, throw it in the chat. This stream will conclude when I've finished all the questions. Matt Bryant, who I spoke to very recently, on the advanced tier Zoom call is in first, which reminds me of one more thing that we noticed on that Zoom call, that the championship playoff semi-final second legs are scheduled for the Monday and the Tuesday of that game week 36 midweek. So I don't think Sky haven't put a Premier League Monday night game in game week 36, and they may not necessarily be interested in showing a Tuesday game. Therefore, it could still be that Man City v Bournemouth also went into game week 37 rather than game week 36. I said there could be no alternative for the Villa Tottenham game. This is what I said, guys, about, game week 36 bench boost. You may have no doubles in 36. Matt's question is, hello mate, good to talk earlier. Know there will be a lot of rotation for Villa versus Southampton, but do you think Konsa will be okay still weighing up bench boost 32 versus 33? Well, here's one bit of news on Ezri Konsa that I can tell you, Matt, bar injury, is he'll get some minutes in game week 33. Can't guarantee that for game week 32. Here's where I stand with Ezri Konsa. The safest Aston Villa pick, I think, undisputed first choice of all Villa's defenders in their first choice 11. Probably him and Luca Dean. We know with Luca Dean there will certainly be some rotation at some point with Ian Maatson. Maybe not so with Ezri Konsa. However, I will repeat what I've said several times earlier about that Southampton fixture and the fact that it's 3 days after the Paris Saint-Germain first leg and 3 days before the Paris Saint-Germain second leg. Likes of Ezri Konsa probably should not be playing that Southampton game. To tell you now whether he would play in it or not is a little bit like, you see this piece of string, how long is it? I don't know, man. I don't know. And my honest best advice to you would be, if you intend to bench boost in game week 32, do not have an Aston Villa defender. At least in the case of the attackers, they probably will come off the bench in, Asensio, Rashford, Mort, Rodgers, all these players who didn't start, probably half hour, 20 minutes, probably get you saying. A defender could just be a flat out zero and an absolute nothing. So if you want to bench boost in 32, Matt, which you know is generally my preference, I wouldn't bother. I'd be looking way more at something like Lewis Dunk for cheaper and the single fixture of Leicester City at home, which you then have less requirement for game week 33, and you can probably hide last on your bench. So I wouldn't go for Konsa if bench boost in 32. If bench boost in 33, he's going to get you at least one game to start. Andrew Parker says, "Good day, mate. So with Villa winning last night, is the assistant manager play Howe in 31, 32 and Arteta 33? Options for bonus this week are poor now with Potter, Frank or Amrin still looking to free hit in 34. Yeah, I've not made a 100% decision, Andrew, but this is the exact route that I've discussed on the Game Review podcast earlier today, which I certainly accept you may not have had the chance to listen to yet. That's what I've said. It's highly likely for me, Eddie Howe for 31 and 32, and then move to Arteta in 33. So as it stands now, that's all I can advise, because that's probably what I'm going to do. Andrew also says, would you go for a midfielder or defender for the third Newcastle spot alongside Isak and Howe? Debating Murphy/Gordon or Trippier/Livramento. So I'll just cover off first and foremost the deliberation between the two options of the players. So Murphy and Gordon. I think with Gordon, again, we discussed this on the Zoom call earlier today. Is there any guarantee that he starts at Leicester on Monday night? I think he's an undisputedly brilliant option for game week 32. And I think if I was free hitting in 32, I'd certainly take the chance on him. It's interesting. If I was free hitting in game week 31, I don't think we'd be picking up Andy Gordon. I don't think we should be certain that he starts. It's Leicester away, so it doesn't feel like the sort of game where you've got to force it or rush it. I think Harvey Barnes has done okay, played quite well in the cup final. Certainly followed tactical instructions down to the letter really well. And as per the Talking Tactics I did, he had a really key role in terms of kind of instigating Newcastle's press and moving from the left-hand side to go up and against Ibrahima Konate. That was crucial to make the man-to-man off-the-ball system work when Newcastle wanted to be aggressive with that. So it feels a little harsh that he'd maybe get taken out of the team. So I don't think we can be certain that Gordon starts on Monday night. I do think Gordon will probably be back in the team for the Manchester United game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Gordon starts Monday, but is there a necessity to do it? Therefore, if I'm making that decision now, Andrew, I think by default I'm going Murphy. On Trippier versus Livramento, preferences with Trippier, you pay a higher ticket price for that. And you also, I think, pay for a little bit more risk. There's a little bit more reward. There's a little bit more risk. Kieran Trippier at 33 or 34, however old he is now, how his recovery is from the Manchester United first game to the Crystal Palace game across a 3-day break in game week 32 has got to kind of be open for debate, hasn't it? I would probably go for Livramento unless I was absolutely certain that Kieran Trippier would not block any potential move for me later on. I was absolute luxury because I definitely already had players that I didn't want to go up to in 33. I.e., I was convinced in 33 I would probably making moves that were downgrades. I don't know. For example, going Sarr to Rodgers. Terrible example. I'm just trying to give you a financial example. If I was leaving it tight on the money and was thinking I'm going to go up from Utara to Rodgers in 33, I'd be quite cautious about that sort of move. So it might come down to that. And ultimately, the preference on attacker or defender might also come down to what are you selling. I think it's close enough that that would probably be the preference. I think that if Gordon plays, that's the best one to have. I think ultimately, if I was free hitting in 32, I would probably take the Trippier chance. And I would take the Gordon chance because I think the upside on those two players is better. But it's not just about 32, is it? You possibly want this player in 33. You're going to want it in 31. And therefore, Murphy and Livramento might be the safer plays. If you were going both, by the way, if you're sort of on wildcard now, that's saving of both. Particularly if aiming towards a bench boost in 32 where you could hide these two players in game week 33 might be the difference that allows you to have a combination of a Saka and Foden maybe along with Salah, which maybe you can't have otherwise. So the preference, Andrew, ultimately on defence v attack might come down to who you're selling. If there is no preference in terms of what you're selling, I'd probably go to your two attackers. Mr. FIPA99 says, do you think there is any scope to free hit in 33 instead of 34? Already have triple Newcastle, Salah and Palmer. Given how small the 33 double is, or even a more rogue 36 free hit to avoid Liverpool versus Arsenal. Wouldn't stress about avoiding a game that's probably going to be irrelevant at the end of the season. There's every chance the title will be done by then, so might be there's more goals that game would normally have. You've got attacking assets from the two teams. If you're uncomfortable with Arsenal defensive and probably bench it in that game week, you may find that you want to move Arsenal players on in 36 to others that may well double in that game week. I think predicting that a free hit will be of better use to you in game week 36, 37 isn't necessarily ideal. I'd probably like it more in terms of the information perspective that you can attack the doublers that you truly want with as much information as you have following the European fixtures taking place in the semi-final second legs for those that get involved in that. But I still think you're better off using it across 33, 34. I think there's more damage moving between those 2 weeks than how it would be 36, 37. Because I don't truly believe, even if we did have 4 teams doubling 36, I don't truly believe you're going to want that many of the doublers because I think there'd be mass rotation. Again, you know, if Villa are playing Tottenham 3 days for a cup final, how much Villa do you want? Under that circumstance, Tottenham have played Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday. Like, they're just single fixtures near enough. Just the expected minutes is more in sort of like the 100 bracket rather than maybe a 75 or 80. It's not great. So I would be free hit in 33 or 34. In terms of, like, is it viable to free hit in 34? Well, of course. There will be, in 33. Of course, yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be dependent on what you've got in your team, isn't it? It's going to be what's more suitable to you. You're looking at something going, hang on a minute, is it better to free hit in 33? Well, yeah, as kind of identified for a number of weeks, the majority of the chips will be best used in game week 33, no matter what it is. So if you want a free hit in 33, absolutely perfectly reasonable. I quite like that in the sense you might bench boost 32. Yeah, it's fine, mate. If that's what suits you better, free hit in 33. Don't worry about, like, oh my God, everyone's bench boosting in 33. I've just seen all that. Everybody's wildcard in game week 30. Fucking hell, James, why don't you wildcard? You're a content creator. Don't you want to do what everyone else is doing? No, not really. Rob Pick says, hi, mate. How would you rank the Aston Villa midfield and forward assets on a 31 wildcard? Looking to bench boost in 33 and free hit in 34. Also, which two goalkeepers do you think are ideal on that strategy? Thanks. Let's start with the goalkeepers first. So bench boost 33, free hit 34. I'm going to say I would probably be looking at a combination like Raya and Areola. Take the Raya double because I think that's one of the safest picks you can have from Arsenal at the moment. And Areola with the single fixture Southampton is perfectly reasonable. And I think also West Ham's fixtures towards the end of the season are not too bad. So, for example, when Raya goes to Liverpool and you might not want to play that, it doesn't look great. Areola's at Manchester United. It's not extraordinary, but I've seen a number of teams win at Old Trafford this season, and that may fall 3 days after a Manchester United Europa League semi-final second leg. It's fine. You're not spending a huge amount of money on it. I don't like combinations I'm seeing at the moment of things like Martinez and Ederson. I'm not seeing a lot of that, admittedly, but I think, bloody hell. It's almost like an overthink of, well, I definitely, unless it's a shock in both semi-finals, I'll probably have a doubler in 36 that way as well. I'm seeing this sort of thing. Not by many, admittedly. But I just wouldn't be spending that volume of money on the goalkeepers. I think Raya falls into, as I said, one of the safest picks from Arsenal. There are others you can attack from the other teams that feel better. Like I like Vardiol more than Ederson. I probably would prefer Konsa over Martinez. Not a lot in that one. You'd probably prefer like Munoz over Henderson. So I feel like Raya and Areola with that single fixture is absolutely fine. You shouldn't be short towards the end as well. And look, you could even be lucky where that one with Areola could become a double was said in 36. Unlikely as per the start of the stream. So those are the two keepers I'll probably come up with tomorrow, sort of like Raya and Areola. In terms of ranking Villa assets, it's not easy, mate. I feel like top of the shop in terms of value remains Morgan Rogers, Mr. Indestructible, because he's the most likely to get the highest volume of minutes. I don't think that he should play at Southampton in game week 32, personally. But at least, again, if he gets off the bench, half hour against that opponent can still do something. He'll almost certainly start against Newcastle in the better of the two fixtures in 33. Then a decision might be made for the Villa game. So I feel like Rogers would be top of the shop because of his value as well. Probably then little preference of Rashford over Asensio. Asensio's got some extraordinary returns from his limited start so far. I suggest that's probably unsustainable, but he may get more starting minutes. He's clearly a good player. Rashford seems to be in a good moment, and we should note that because of Marcus Rashford that's feeling good is a very, very good potential fantasy asset. So I think Rodgers, then Rashford over Asensio for me. Ramsey's playing okay at the moment, but doesn't really get the returns that would make him worth considering. Similar with Tielemans. So I think it's probably Rodgers, Rashford, Asensio, but quite close between no consideration for Leon Bailey, even if he was fit. Doesn't get enough returns. Nicholas says, how do I get better at benching players? Not counting my Emerson 10-pointer and Howson 14-pointer returns that were on the second place bench. I have first benched Rodgers twice, Dango, Munoz, Pedro, Solanke and Cunha for 87 points this year. First thing I would do, Nicholas, is not look back at these sort of things. There's a reason you made these choices at the time in individual weeks. I'll tell you a really easy way to make it better, mate, is have more crap on your bench. When you've got players like Rodgers, who's like an ideal weight for tackle and you end up wanting to play it quite a lot, this is what happens. So it's a blessing to have had a player for much of this season. Then you've had people like Utara recently, Clivert and Semenyo being cheap at stages, other players as well, that end up becoming like your 8 for tacker, and you've got a selection headache every week. So if you want to get better at not leaving points in the bench, pick crapper players, mate. That is not the best way to play this game, mate. It's about having options and opportunities every week. And the fact that you're leaving that many points on the bench isn't something I'd necessarily frown upon, mate. You've got players there who have had good weeks at good times, and you have weeks like this where Justin Clivert doesn't rock up and you've got one of these players come off the bench. It's not a bad thing, mate. I really wouldn't be going back and looking at how many points I've benched on my first place bench. in a one-off week, an outcome can be an outcome, mate. You may have, despite those points, done the players that you mentioned, you may have made the correct decision every single time. I'll give you an example. I benched Pedro Porro at Manchester City for his 14 or 15 pointer back on a rare good away day for me this season. Do I regret that decision? Nah, it's the right decision. And that equates to what, 1/6 for the total you're mentioning there just in one game week. Happens, mate. Happens. FPL Dunn says, hi James, what is the new position for Langer that's being mentioned? And is it likely to stick? Took a punt on him on my wild card and got a nice return. So I covered this quite a bit, which I'd maybe recommend having a listen back to. And I might even do a talking tactics on him, actually. If this sticks over the next couple of weeks in the build up towards game week 34, I might even be something I consider next week even. But I like doing it maybe before 34 because I've seen him play at Tottenham on a Monday night. So when I've got that vantage point, I'm not having to follow what the fucking camera's doing. I can see some things slightly differently. In short, what's happening is he's not confined to a specific set role at this moment, i.e. he's not playing left wing or right wing. He has freedom of a more kind of historic number 10. Now, he's nothing like a number 10. This changed in the Manchester United game, by the way, where he did end up basically playing right wing. But to start the game, he pretty much had a free role. Not quite as free as it had been, because he played a little bit more like a right inside forward. But certainly not hugging the touchline. And he has freedom to go where he wants and exploit an attack. As per the goals at Ipswich, he scored one where he was able to drift to the right and cut in and score. The second goal he scored in that game was where he was in a central area from a direct zone ball, i.e. not playing left wing or right wing, and just read that the ball might go over Chris Wood's head and got on the end of it and scored. So it's a more central role, therefore he's closer to goal. He's having to do less double up work to support his fullback, so he's staying in higher positions without the ball, quite often being at the kind of top with Wood when he's been available as part of, say, a 4-4-2. As said, he kind of ended up more right wing later in the Manchester United game, more of a 5-4-1 structure. But he's starting games at the moment in the more central zones with freedom to go where he wants. That's cut a long story short there. Gaz's Flute says, hi James, thoughts on best Gabriel replacement for Bench Boost 32? We already have Munoz, Vardiol, Nico Williams and Byrne. I'm tempted by another Forest defender given their fixtures and good defensive numbers. Top of the shot for me would probably be Lewis Dunk at 4.2, highly likely to play. He's got the capability in him to hit a haul in a game like that. I think the fixtures following that, bar probably Liverpool at home in 37, feel okay, where if you had to play him, you could. Certainly accept that Forest are even better and probably more likely to stay competitive right till the end of the season. So if your preference was another Forest player, I don't have a problem with that, but I think I would be looking, considering you've got, one Newcastle, one Palace, I'd probably be looking Lewis Dunk, would be top for me now, 4.2. FPL Don says, I can wait for one more price drop before I lose value in Gabriel. So going to wait until I need a defender for bench boost 32. Thinking Bradley, Kivior or Milenkovic at the moment. So yeah, there's a few other ones. We spoke on our Zoom call earlier today about Bradley even being part of a bench boost for 33. I think you'd need to see Bradley play in 31, Don, to feel good about it. But you said you can wait. So you may be not making this move this week. Kivior in between the two Real Madrid games, I'd probably want to avoid unless he didn't play against Real Madrid in the first leg. Milenkovic is fine. Absolutely fine. Unreasonable. Just bear in mind, I think attacking Everton from that fixture is fine and going to Forest defender is fine. Last night was the first time Everton hadn't scored, I think, since Moyes' first game. So they're regularly scoring at the moment now. We've said psychological about playing Everton at home, but still feels all right, though, for an asset. So, don't mind that. Milenkovic probably the preference from those. Brian Lee says, hi James, what's your opinion of Foden going forward? Where's my hair? Where's my hair, mate? So, I'd recommend listening towards the end of the Game Review podcast today, where we answered a question from Blue Sky about potentially selling Foden this week. Suj was of the opinion bin. I was of the opinion for keep for this week and then reassess. Unless there's something that you know you want to go to this week, if you are clear on that, and by all means, I don't mind. I think he starts for Manchester City on Sunday. I think he'll end up in central areas. And I think I would probably keep him this week and then reassess going into game week 32 would be my take at the moment. I have been very clear for weeks on Manchester City assets that Vardiol was the only one ever tempting me. And obviously Marmoush had tempted even prior to Haaland's injury and is obviously the one you would want now. Do not get a third Manchester City asset for the sake of getting a third Manchester City asset. I'm going to assume, Brian, that this question is because you already own him. That's fine. I'm saying keep. I definitely wouldn't buy at this moment. And truthfully, if I was on wildcard right now, I would have 2 Manchester City players only. If I had to add a third, his name would be Savinho, because he don't cost as much as Phil Foden. Perlo's Pen says, hi James, do you prefer using triple captain on Saka in 33 for the double, or holding out for the potential of Marmoush, Southampton and Bournemouth? No, I mean, I'd arguably just rather go Marmoush in 33. That's my plan at the moment, is just Marmoush in 33, Everton away and Villa at home. Now, that might change where it becomes Saka. I need to see Saka look capable of his best over this period. Clearly, those fixtures for Arsenal were a little bit better, but I do think Marmoush has a real explosiveness potential in him, actually. And I think with City having a free midweek before Everton, and then not playing the Nottingham Forest semi-final till 5 days after Villa, I think City's double is actually, of those that double and then play in the Cup, is probably the best of those teams. So currently, if we were going into 33 right now, I'd be captain Marmoush, and I would do it then rather than holding off till 36, personally. What if something went wrong with Marmoush in 36? Even if it's the single, I get it, it's like the Haaland thing, but then what? What if it's no good? I'd get it used in 33, personally. Mr. Feeper says, in a worst case scenario, why couldn't a game like Villa versus Spurs be played after game week 38, especially if it doesn't impact the title war, top 4 or relegation? Well, right now, mate, you can't say that it won't, because Aston Villa are in contention for European places. So you couldn't. It has not happened for a very, very long time that games were played after the end of the season. I think you even need to factor in these days that what's the prize money per league played, like $2.5 million per league place or something. So even if a team knew, well, I've got to win the final game by 3 goals and that'll jump us 3 places. I mean, the physical knowing that in advance could be worth £7.5 million in theory. So money's got a lot to do with that. But yeah, it's more the general sporting integrity of actual places. It's probably, in fact, it's highly possible at the moment that Villa will go to Old Trafford in game week 38 something to play for. Even if that's just trying to compete for like Conference League place or whatever, right? Highly likely. Or it might determine what competition they play in. So yeah, there's a number of reasons. We obviously had the scenario, I think 92-93, the first Premier League season, if I remember correctly. Well, I certainly know Tottenham played at Arsenal after the season. And I don't know why it was after the season, but that's how they did it then. I think Wimbledon played Sheffield Wednesday that night as well. And Arsenal and Sheffield Wednesday were due to play in the FA Cup final the following weekend. And Arsenal changed their whole team, by the way. The night to play for, they played a reserve side against Tottenham. And yes, we won, actually. I don't think it's happened since then. We obviously had the scenario a few years ago where Manchester United played Bournemouth after there was the suspicious package at Old Trafford. Now, unavoidable. Literally nothing you could do about that. So, sporting integrity and money are 2 very good reasons why that will not happen. Mikey Hughes says, how does 36 and 37 now look possibly? Good question. I covered it right near the start. The projections will remain unchanged at the moment, which is for Villa, Tottenham and Manchester City, Bournemouth to be brought forward. I may change my mind on that. I will warn again that there is every chance there will be no doubles in game week 36. Every chance there will be no doubles in 36. I will say now that the next thing that will potentially change the projections is Tottenham's game against Eintracht Frankfurt, or the possible announcement of game week 37 fixtures, which might be before the conclusion of that tie, but I'm not expecting it to be, judging on what they've done with their selections. There is a date somewhere, and I think it's due to be borderline the conclusion. They may well wait. If Tottenham lose to Eintracht Frankfurt in Europa League quarter-finals, I'm going to move the projections for Villa Tottenham and Manchester City v Bournemouth to game week 37, with no doubles in 36. So you want doubles in 36, I suggest you all support me in Frankfurt. And also the first leg. Chris Green says, hi James, hope you are well. I am, thank you mate, hope you are too. Chris says, I've wildcarded this week because I want to assistant manager 31 to 33. So I presume you've been wildcarding in 30. Thinking Emery just straight through. I was debating Palace as it was double-double, but even before last night's result, I'm unsure if I want to have a piece of those 4 Palace fixtures. Do you have any thoughts on 31-33 strategy? Yeah, dude, covered already, so I'm not going to repeat in too much detail, Chris. My take at the moment is I'm probably going Eddie Howe 31 to 32 and then Arteta in 33. If I was going just one manager at this moment all the way through, I would probably go Arteta, actually, because I'd be happier looking at Arteta this week away to Everton than I would be looking at Howe away to Villa in 33. So I would arguably do that rather than Glasner or Emery. I think the appeal is massively lost on the fact that those 2 managers do not have bonus now this week. So I would be paying the extra. If you are not able to do that, I would... I'd probably go Glasner out of the 2. You can almost hear from my sigh. I've completely talked myself into the Eddie Howe route, right? Completely talked myself into it. I feel like I did that during the midweek FPL dilemma yesterday, actually. Milan Rizavi says, hello, James. Is a -4 for Burn/Livramento instead of Howson worth it? Currently only have Isak from Newcastle. Plans to do Gabriel to Trippier as my free transfer. Probably not with West Ham scoring issues at the moment. No. And it's interesting that I had a lot of feedback on socials, which you shouldn't take too much notice of, that I probably should have taken a -4 this week to get myself an extra Crystal Palace player. And guess what? Every single one of them under consideration obviously blanked. I think Pickford even outscored Henderson on the night. Never mind, that was the one I was kind of really deliberating for -4. I was deliberating a -4 for Ismail Assar to cover for Jared Bowen. I mean, if Levi Cole does keep a clean sheet tonight, what a touch that is that I've not done that, for example. I hope he doesn't, obviously. So I'm going to kind of say no on the -4. If you were taking the -4 for Trippier and chasing that upside, I could get it a little bit more. For Livramento Burn, what's the reality here, mate? They're probably 6-pointers and, Howson's probably a 2-pointer. Okay, you've got your hit paid back. I'm talking about best case scenario here. You've got your hit back. Now, obviously, you're in a better position. I get that. But that's probably your best case scenario for this week. I'm not sure I'd bother. The more I'm looking at these doubles, the less I'm thinking got to, i.e. I don't think I've got to. Matt Bryant says, Gabriel is the latest in what feels like a higher than usual amount of hamstring/muscular injuries in the Prem this year. Do you think VAR delays with more stop starts have contributed to this? Yes, a little bit, but you'd never be able to measure it. And I think in the case of Gabriel, it's probably more the longer term of the amount of games he's played. I'm going to presume he probably played for Brazil in the international break, but he obviously didn't play the weekend before, so there was no reason, you can't be hindsight and say he shouldn't have played against Fulham. Of course he should play against Fulham. He didn't play the weekend before, and it was on the Tuesday, so it was a 4-day gap to the next game. Literally no reason for Gabriel not to play that game, and he's pulled up. I'm sure he knows how to stretch, etc. He's a top player. he's pulled up, 10, 15 minutes into the game, mate. We can't put that on VAR in any way at all. No way. There's no way we can put it on that at all. So I think there are circumstances where it's not helped and probably has impacted a small number of injuries. I think we're probably now at more the speed, intensity and volume of games. I think you're seeing a number of teams who are fatiguing quite badly heading towards the end of this season. I think Bournemouth, I've much spoken about it even being a problem for Liverpool a little bit earlier today. It may be a problem for Arsenal a little bit now. Gabriel was essentially played pretty much every game he's been available for Arsenal, bar some League Cup games and stuff, for 3 seasons now, probably. I saw it's Ben Dinnery, ironically, who obviously covers the injury news really well. He tweeted earlier a screen grab from Sky that showed the impact on Arsenal's results with and without Gabriel. And it was dated back to 2020. And I was thinking, that's a really fucking shit stat. Why is that a shit stat? Well, it's a shit stat because since the summer of 2022, Arsenal have been a pretty good team. And in the 24 months before that, a pretty fucking shit team. So what's the point in that? I'd literally only be interested in the data of understanding the impact, how many goals they concede in the games that he's missed since 2022. Why did they not use those stats? I bet you ain't missed many games over that period. It's probably that. It's probably caught up with him. How many top players can we think of that haven't suffered a injury that's kept them out for a significant period over the last 3 years, that have played the volume of games like a Gabriel has? Which obviously, it's not just the volume of games, they're intense games. Right? Arsenal are playing for trophies, etc. And the only one you can ever think of, you keep coming back to, is Bruno Fernandes. And we even had a little conversation about him sometime recently, about, because I used the word reiki, right? Bruno Fernandes doesn't carry like big muscle mass. It's quite, he can well look after himself, but I wouldn't call him like built in terms of muscle mass or anything. Is that one of the reasons he gets away with injuries so much? Now, it might be that he just keeps himself in great nick, etc. But he's there every game, isn't he? Every game for United, he's there. It's an incredible achievement. But he's the only one you can really think of. I'm sure there are others, don't get me wrong. I'm just thinking about Tottenham over the last 2 years. And I know the way we play with Ange has a little bit of an impact on this. I'm trying to think of any Tottenham players not been injured in the last 2 years. Any? Porro, maybe. It's probably the only one. It feels like he's not really had an injury. Guess what? Bet he's next. Because we was thinking similar about Kulusevski, and there we go. Matt says, is it down to the change of style of play, more high press, greater intensity, etc.? Yeah, we got to do something about the here's the problem, okay? Here's one thing that will fix it, right? Let's give you an example, Matt, because you asked about Villa console, right? For the Villa Southampton game, right? This fucking nonsense where Villa are playing PSG Wednesday, league game Saturday, and then Tuesday against PSG again should fucking stop. All right? Villa should have it in that week. This is down to UEFA. It's no one else's. And it's down to the selling the TV package. I know why it's done. So you've got, the example would be at the moment, Amazon Prime have the top pick of whatever game they want on a Tuesday, right? So they try and mix it up. So Amazon will get one of Arsenal's games and will get one of Villa's games. I get it. Got to get away from that. Have to. This idea that you're going to play those 2 intense quarterfinals and have the fucking league game in the middle, which is still important to Villa, right? They've got to win that game in the middle, right? Villa should be playing Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, or they should be playing Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Sunday, Wednesday. However you want to do that, between those quarterfinals, they should have the same schedule for both. So if you had Villa were Tuesday, Premier League, Tuesday, same for Arsenal, Wednesday, Premier League, Wednesday. Let's fucking help these teams out a little bit. Jesus Christ. It's actually even worse in a weird way for the Champions League teams when you hit this bit at the end. Us in Europa, we moan about the Thursday, Sunday shit all year long, right? But at least we know what that is. It's Thursday, Sunday, Thursday. So at least you know Sunday to Thursday, you've got that 4-day gap. Probably be better if it was Thursday, Monday, Thursday, ironically, quite often. Maybe not at this stage of the season, but perhaps earlier it would be helpful if it was more like that. But then who wants the Monday night games? Rather have the Sunday, wouldn't you? Don't mind a Monday night game, just don't want that every single week. Little things like that would help, Matt. Say like with Conser in the example, right? He's going to play the 2 Paris Saint-Germain games. He's going to be fucking chasing around after Dembele or something, right? It's going to be susceptible, right? There's something going wrong. That Southampton game in the middle, you probably don't prepare the same way. There's so many kind of nuanced factors at play that we might not consider for that. Does Ezri Konsa prepare for Southampton in the middle of them 2 PSG games in the same way? Physically, probably yes. Mentally, and then not sure. Does that then cause a consequence? Now, by the way, Ezri Konsa, I highlighted him actually for England during the international break. I thought he was great in the Albania game. I really wanted to make a point of it. I thought he was really good and really composed and calm. And I think he's getting towards a level of being a top centre-back, actually. Where I think Villa might be looking over their shoulders a little bit, actually, at, who knows, a Liverpool might go, I like him, for example. I don't think that's beyond possibility in the near future, because I think he's becoming an extremely good centre-back. So many things we can do to help. The calendar's got to be looked at. And I think what will have to happen, Matt, is strike. That's what's going to have to happen. The players are going to have to club together and go, do you know what? We ain't fucking playing. And it's only at that point I think something's going to change, because the greed in the game for financials is off the scale. And the calendar is too fucking tight. Go back to the Clayton and James show point about Tamworth, and I know it was part in jest, but it was very, very serious. There was nowhere to play that football match if you wanted the replay. There's nowhere. It's not right that teams are playing every weekend, every midweek. It's not. Or at least more to the point, we're sitting here going, Villa have got to rotate their whole team at Southampton. That's what I'm saying they would do. If I was a Villa fan, I'd be thinking, fuck that. Take the chance at Southampton, change the whole team. That's what I'd be thinking. I'm looking at Tottenham this Sunday against Southampton. I think play the strongest team tonight, change the whole team on Sunday. So you're now asking the consumer to play for something that's not the top level of quality, because you'll get all these Koreans are at Tottenham as an example on Sunday, and it's where's Sonny? Is there an obligation to play Sonny in a fixture like he shouldn't be playing at his age? He'll play tonight. He'll play against Frankfurt. Despite whatever I think of him, love him as a person and what he's been, don't rate him that much as a player anymore. Don't want him to play on Sunday, because actually I'd protect him. So we're asking the consumer even to pay for a product that's not the best possible product, because the best players shouldn't be on show. Right? We're failing. What we don't want, it's not more football. It's better quality football. And I think the quality of football is suffering. Last year's European Championship, let's be realistic about this, inarguably one of the best places you could play in terms of weather conditions, in terms of Germany. Right? There's a lot of rainfall. It was warm. It wasn't that hot. Right? It was one of the poorest tournaments. Football largely at European Championship was crap. It's a consequence. I think it's going to continue. I think we can expect the World Cup to be quite crap as well next summer. You've got this Club World Cup nonsense happening now. It's too much. And until the players, I think, will have to group up together, Matt, I think it will continue. Thank you for letting me rant for 10 minutes. Shamil Galani says, hypothetical question. It's back to 2002. England versus Brazil quarter-final. It's gone to penalties and sudden death. Sol Campbell steps up. If he scores, England win. Are you cheering him on? No. Cheering England. There's plenty of players who've played for England who I've not liked. Plenty. Listen, when he scored in that tournament against Sweden in 2002, do you think I celebrated, mate? Of course I celebrated, mate. England went in front in the opening game of the World Cup. Of course I celebrated, mate. Yeah, 100%. Would I want him to score under that circumstance? Of course, mate. It's not that deep. And I certainly, even under that circumstance, wouldn't even be thinking, miss, you twat. Afterwards, I'd be thinking, you twat. But no, he'd be playing for the team that I was supporting. I'd want him to score, wouldn't I? Lamichi says, hi, James. On a wild card for my differential team, do you think Eze, Sarr, Mateta will make 20% for the double? You might be lucky with Sarr, I think. I can't recall the percentage of pricing on the Mateta. No, don't think you make it. Sarr you might make. I feel like we looked at it and was like, Eze is borderline. Mateta, I don't think you make it. Milan Rizzavi says, with Liverpool close to winning a title and also rumoured to have an overhaul of the squad, can you remember last time when the champions made a lot of changes to their title winning team? Excuse me. No, but I think it's a real position of strength that should happen. I think it makes you nervous when a team's won the league and they don't refresh. I think this has been a problem for teams in the past. So the fact that Liverpool won it unexpectedly and we know that they need a rebuild, sure. A team that's won it and then needed a rebuild afterwards, no, there won't be many circumstances of that. Yeah, I mean, you're lacing it as team made changes. There's definitely been years where City have made quite a number of changes. There's been years that they haven't. But it feels like Liverpool actually need a bit of a rebuild. It's a very unusual one. Trying to think of an example. Maybe Pellegrini's City 14 maybe did begin to feel like it needed it. Maybe. Lee Sherwood, thoughts on Doku? Yeah, you're funny. He says, jokes aside, thoughts on Martinez and Henderson as a rotation in bench boost 33, even if it means no Munoz. If you're intent on having two goalkeepers that double in 33, sure, good luck, go for it, my friend. I don't have huge issues with that. Josh Davis says, what scoreline tonight do you think gets Ange sacked? Can't see anything other than a loss tonight personally, but come you Spurs regardless. I don't think there's any score that would see him sacked tonight, mate. Don't think so, because they've still got to have. Would have to appoint something, Josh, that they deem is going to give them a better chance of winning on next Thursday, ultimately. And unless they have that identified, what's the point? We had a conversation yesterday on Tottenham, I think was fascinating, which I recommend listening back to. It's a really interesting conversation. And we end up going down a rabbit hole that was completely unplanned, talking about this potential 3-man domestic shortlist that Tottenham have, and there may be more names, to potentially replace Ange, of Thomas Frank, Marco Silva and Andoni Iraola. And we ended up going down a rabbit hole of discussing if any of those three were more likely to win Europa League if they were appointed now than Ange Postecoglou. And we weren't sure. We kind of come to a conclusion Iraola would need a while for his methods. And therefore we thought Frank or Silva might be a better choice, but it would still be a deviation from what the current football is, and we don't know if it would work. So I don't know what Tottenham would deem by this time for next Thursday, that what they'd get that would be definitively better. That's ultimately the only thing that matters here, Josh. Would they have someone that they could appoint that gives them a better chance of beating Eintracht Frankfurt in Europa League? What score would Tottenham have to lose by tonight for that sort of thing to happen? 7s, 8s at least, mate. I think. If Tottenham lose 5-0 tonight, I don't think that makes a bit of difference, mate, really. It'd have to be horrendously bad. And let's be honest, other than Kulusevski, it's going to be our strongest team tonight. That won't happen. It won't. Chelsea fans will tell you that's not going to happen. Perdo's Pen says, hi James, would you consider taking up a new sport, walking, football, golf, tennis? I don't know if I could stick to walking football because my desire would be to run despite how I am. Golf's never really been for me. I'd like foot tennis. I used to play foot tennis quite a lot. I used to play football under tennis rules on courts in Priory Park when I was younger. Squash I thought about quite a bit. Too fucking intense now. Can I have snooker, poker, darts? It's just not viable for me with I'd say my back. The problem is my back. The pain's my foot, mate. It's just not really viable for me to be doing anything sporty at all, unfortunately, at the moment. Lee says, context on Gabriel. He didn't play the second game in Brazil due to, I believe, suspension. So there you go. So he even had more than a full week's break, and it still happened. But it probably is a build-up. A little bit like with my back, truthfully. How did I do my back, right, to get the sciatica? I bent down to pick up a show. Right, it wasn't that one action. It was something that was obviously rubbing away a long time, and then that just happened to be that one moment that I bent over, and then the back went. And that's probably what it was for Gabriel. So there was a time, the Liverpool game earlier in the season, where he was rubbing it. Maybe he's been like on the edge of going for 4 or 5 months. Who knows? Milan says, what do you think will be the future of Thomas Kinski at Tottenham? If you don't have Europe next year, he could get 6 to 10 games in the Cups, and that is not a lot for a young goalkeeper. Is loan the best solution? No, the best solution is for him to play and train with Tottenham, and we need him. We need him, mate. We've brought him in because it was glaringly obvious last summer that we didn't have a understudy goalkeeper, and do you know what? The tree did all right. That was good enough to cover for Vic if something happened. So he's got to stay, mate. Sorry, I might stunt his development, but he's young. It's different for a goalkeeper. He might go out on loan, and Vicario does his ACL, and Tottenham got no goalkeeper, mate. And he would have played all them games at Tottenham in the Premier League. So he stays at Tottenham. There's absolutely no chance that he would go out on loan next year unless Tottenham bought another goalkeeper that would allow that to happen. And I believe you told me he's got the capability to be one of the best goalkeepers in the world. So he's not going anywhere, mate. Lamici says, hi, James. Assuming Solanke starts today, reckon he'll play against Southampton, looking for a captain for the differential team. Dominic Solanke should not play on Sunday. I wouldn't even tell him to turn up to the fucking stadium, mate. Just fucking put your feet up, mate. Don't even watch the game. Watch Fulham against Liverpool. Honestly, that would be me personally. But I do think Ange feels, and he's a little bit different to other players in the sense I feel he needs for his conditioning a little bit more of a build-up. He's obviously not played any football competitively for 18 days. So under that circumstance, you could make a case, well, there's nothing wrong with Thursday. Sure, okay, fine. I'd probably rather go Thursday now, miss Sunday, play Thursday, hour at Wolves the following Sunday. And then, do we play the following midweek? Yeah, then the next Thursday, obviously, of course. And then it's Monday, Nottingham Forest, fine. Sunday, Liverpool, fine. Hopefully, semi-finals. So you wouldn't play on Sunday, mate. But can't answer that question now. If there's any reason that he's taken off early tonight, i.e. if the team was in an unlikely good position, it would make me think he probably would start on Sunday. Highly likely he plays the 90 minutes or very close to. And I think he's probably one tonight that you'll sit here this time tomorrow and you won't know either way. I would say it's more likely that he plays on Sunday than he does not. But it might also come down to minutes. So take my predicted team tonight. Odebear, Solanke, Son. Ange will want to get minutes on Sunday if that's the front three. You can bet then that Tell and Johnson would start. Is there another one instead? Maybe. Could Werner start on Sunday? John might as well play Werner on Sunday. I think he probably does because I think we need to see Matisse Tell play wide now rather than as a 9. But if you ask me, he shouldn't play Sunday. Fucking play half of them, mate, on Sunday. Yeah, Mickey van der Ven be another one. Just no way he should play on Sunday. Milan says, regarding the schedule, I'd be really interested in the stats for intensity difference between other sports like basketball and ice hockey, where the game is every 2 days, pretty much. They're conditioned for it. More kind of short sprints and stuff. I don't know enough about the sports to know, but I don't think the schedules have increased. The schedule of football. I saw a statistic. I think this was also Ben Dinnery. And the statistic, I think, was that in theory, between now and the World Cup final, Nicholas Jackson could play like 90 games. Right. This is mad. It's mad. Milan says it could be the long off-season that is a solution for other sports. Maybe, but we're trying to cram it in, right? So having 4 months off in the summer ain't going to fix anything. Particularly. Really want another fix? Truthfully, again, I've spoken about this before, it's a money thing, so it won't happen. But the teams who qualify for Europe should get out of the Carabao Cup. Get them out of it. Mr. FIPA 99 says, if football didn't exist and you had to make equivalent content on another sport, egg tactics, fantasy, weekly reviews, what sport would that be? On another sport, I couldn't. A, I don't think I'd have the interest. B, I just wouldn't be equipped with the information to even attempt to do it. I could only think the only thing that it's not sport. Do you call it a sport? It's not. It's pro wrestling. I can only think like wrestling would be the only thing I think I could get near. And I'd have to go back to watching it all the time and stuff. That's the only thing I could think where I'd have a background knowledge to be able to like talk about it and have the interest in it and probably enjoy it at the same time. Don't think I could, mate. Football Manager is one we've spoken about in the past. I am fascinated by the idea of doing content on it, but it's just not viable. I do not have the time to consider doing it. But I would like to try something maybe at some point. I'm interested in the idea of that. Even if it was just for you guys. I'm intrigued by the idea of it. But fuck knows. There isn't time. I would tell you truthfully, because it's you guys, I thought today's podcast was crap. I knew it when I was doing it that I wasn't equipped with the sort of information that I would normally have. Because last night I watched one game of football and there were 5 other games that I watched all the highlights for, but didn't feel quite equipped enough as I normally would be to have that little bit of time Sunday, Monday to just go and have more information. Felt like everything was late last night, bang, bed, go this morning. I didn't feel the podcast was as good this morning as it normally was. You guys might have thought it was good. I don't know. I knew within me I didn't have the armory of information that I normally have in terms of what I've seen with my eyes and even just research. It was like, right, watch as much as I can, go to bed, do the podcast. So I feel that. So if I don't feel equipped to have the information for other things, no chance, buddy. Lee Sherwood says top 3 Arsenal assets on wildcard, not including Raya, Saliba, Saka, reluctantly Martinelli. That's your questions covered. Thank you guys very much to all of you, particularly who contributed in the chat and give me some questions. Oh, excuse me, indigestion. I'm now off to Stamford Bridge. Tomorrow we will have me and Clates will do wildcard 31 stuff. We'll look at some drafts and some different paths, same as we did on Tuesday. It's also Clates with me for differential show. Team news for advanced tier patrons is scheduled for 4 p.m. tomorrow. There is a small possibility that could become 10 o'clock at night, but I don't anticipate that being the case. But if it is, apologies in advance. Thanks very much, everyone. For the benefit of those who are listening back to the audio, cue music, please. Man child.